game with Jerry and Hugo, you're all...
Hindi ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung...
Pauline Hanson explodes. Leave her alone. Those words have ignited a firestorm that no one in tennis or politics was prepared for. Champions tennis family, buckle in, because this story is not just big, it's seismic. The normally separate worlds of elite professional tennis and Australian federal politics have slammed together in a way that feels surreal, volatile, and completely unprecedented. What started as a young athlete speaking her mind has now escalated into a full-scale political confrontation, with global attention fixed on every word, every move, and every consequence. At the center of it all stands a 20-year-old Filipino tennis star, Alex Eala, suddenly thrust into a battle far larger than any match she has ever played. Pauline Hanson, one of Australia's most polarizing political figures and the longtime leader of One Nation, has never been known for subtlety or restraint. She thrives in controversy, feeds off confrontation, and rarely backs down once she plants her flag. But even by her standards, this moment was explosive. In a stunning intervention that has left journalists scrambling and politicians bristling, Hanson launched a fierce, unapologetic defense of Eala, accusing powerful forces of orchestrating what she described as a cruel and unjust campaign against a young woman whose only offense was daring to speak honestly. Her tone was not measured. It was furious, emotional, and deliberately confrontational. According to Hanson, what is happening to Eala is not a misunderstanding or a media overreaction. She framed it as a targeted attack, a warning shot to athletes everywhere about the price of stepping out of line. In her view, Eala exercised a basic human right, freedom of speech, and was punished for it because her words made people in power uncomfortable. Hanson made it clear she sees this as a dangerous precedent, one that goes far beyond tennis and strikes at the heart of who is allowed to speak and who is expected to stay silent. The shockwaves intensified when Hanson shifted her focus upward, directly toward Australia's Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. This was not a vague criticism or a passing jab. It was a direct challenge. Hanson invoked her long tenure in Parliament, referencing her experience under 4 different prime ministers, and delivered a scathing assessment of the current government. She accused Albanese of failing his own promises of accountability, pointing to what she described as a pattern of shutting down debate, ramming legislation through Parliament, and ignoring serious issues when they become politically inconvenient. In that context, her defense of Eala became symbolic, a line in the sand about power, accountability, and who gets protected. Then came the moment that froze the room. Hanson, staring straight into the cameras, delivered a 12-word warning that instantly went viral and is now being dissected across television panels, radio shows, and social media feeds worldwide. Touch her again and you'll answer to me and the Australian people. The message was unmistakable. This was not just support. It was a threat of political escalation, a promise that any further pressure placed on Eala would be met with open resistance. The international tennis community felt the impact immediately. Players, coaches, and commentators began asking the same question in hushed tones and public posts alike. How did a young tennis player become the focal point of a political showdown that reaches the highest levels of government? Why is everyone suddenly watching this situation with such intensity? The answer lies in timing, visibility, and the uncomfortable truth that athletes today hold enormous influence, whether they want it or not. As the new tennis season approached, what should have been a routine build-up filled with match previews and fitness updates was completely overshadowed. Headlines shifted from forehands and rankings to politics and power struggles. Media outlets in Australia, the Philippines, and beyond flooded their platforms with analysis, speculation, and opinion pieces. Hanson's intervention ensured that this story could no longer be quietly managed or smoothed over. It was now loud, public, and impossible to ignore. Eala, meanwhile, remained largely silent publicly, a silence that only intensified the drama. Supporters argue that she is being forced to carry an unbearable weight, expected to defend herself while simultaneously preparing for elite competition. Critics claim she invited scrutiny by speaking out in the first place. Hanson rejected that argument outright, asking how anyone could justify attacking a young woman who has devoted her life to representing her country with pride and integrity. In her framing, Eala is not a troublemaker. She is a symbol of courage. That framing resonated powerfully online. Clips of Hanson's speech spread rapidly, racking up millions of views within hours. Comment sections filled with fierce debate, some praising Hanson for standing up to authority, others condemning her for dragging politics into sport. But even her critics acknowledged one thing. She had changed the stakes. This was no longer just about Alex Eala as an individual. It was about what happens when athletes challenge narratives, and how institutions respond when they feel threatened. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted. Sponsors watched closely. Tennis officials monitored the situation carefully. Every decision now carried added weight, knowing that any perceived misstep could fuel further outrage. The idea that a 20-year-old player could become a lightning rod for international debate speaks volumes about the modern sports landscape, where visibility is constant and silence is rarely an option. As this political storm gathered strength, one uncomfortable truth became clear. Alex Eala was no longer just preparing for a tennis season. Whether she chose it or not, she had been placed at the center of a cultural and political argument about voice, power, and consequence. Pauline Hanson's intervention ensured that retreat was no longer possible. The spotlight was locked in place, unforgiving and intense. And yet, as explosive as the political dimension is, it is only half the story. Because while these arguments rage in parliament halls and media studios, Eala is still a professional athlete with matches to play and expectations to meet. The timing could not be more brutal. With the season about to begin, the pressure she faces is not theoretical. It is immediate, physical, and relentless. The next chapter of this saga does not unfold behind a podium or on a debate floor. It unfolds on the tennis court, under lights, in front of crowds who now see her as far more than just a promising young player. The tension surrounding Alex Eala's situation has become almost suffocating, and it is growing heavier with every passing hour. Just days before the opening serve of a new tennis season, the narrative has veered sharply away from practice courts and warm-up matches into a relentless cycle of headlines, political commentary, and social media warfare. What should have been a period of quiet preparation has transformed into a global spotlight that refuses to dim. For Eala, the challenge is no longer just physical readiness. It is about emotional control, mental discipline, and the ability to block out a noise so loud it threatens to drown out everything else. Reports continue pouring in from media outlets across Australia, the Philippines, and Europe, all circling the same central question. Is this a young athlete being unfairly targeted for speaking her truth, or is she paying the inevitable price of entering a conversation far bigger than sport? Pauline Hanson's defense has poured fuel on the fire, framing Eala as a symbol of resistance rather than just a tennis player. Supporters argue that without powerful allies, young athletes from smaller nations are often left exposed when they challenge authority. Critics counter that Hanson's involvement only escalates tensions and risks dragging Eala deeper into controversy. According to sources close to the situation, Eala has been subjected to intense scrutiny behind the scenes. Every comment she has made in the past is being re-examined. Every interview clip is being replayed and reinterpreted. What once felt like honest expression is now treated as evidence in a trial conducted by public opinion. Hanson has repeatedly described this as cruel and disproportionate, emphasizing that Eala is barely out of her teens and already facing pressures that would overwhelm many seasoned professionals. In one of her most widely shared statements, Hanson painted a vivid picture of a young woman under siege. She spoke not just of rankings or trophies, but of sacrifice, of years spent training far from home, of carrying national pride on fragile shoulders. Her question echoed across platforms worldwide. How can demanding fairness be twisted into something deserving punishment? That single question struck a nerve with fans who see in Eala a reflection of countless athletes asked to perform, inspire, and represent, but remain silent when uncomfortable truths arise. As the debate raged online, Eala made a decisive move that signaled her refusal to be defined solely by controversy. She arrived in Auckland, New Zealand, focused and composed, ready to compete in the ASB Classic, one of the key lead-up tournaments to the Australian Open. The optics alone were powerful. While politicians argued and commentators speculated, she picked up her racket and returned to work. Yet this was no ordinary tournament appearance. Every step she took was watched. Every practice session drew extra attention. The court had become a stage far larger than usual. Adding another layer to the story was Eala's doubles partnership. She teamed up with American teenage sensation Iva Jovic, an 18-year-old already making waves on the professional tour. Jovic's rise has been rapid and impressive. Ranked inside the top 40 in singles, she has already claimed a WTA title and built a reputation as fearless, aggressive, and mentally tough beyond her years. On paper, The pairing made sense. Two young players with explosive potential, little to lose, and everything to prove. Together, Eala and Jovic represent a snapshot of the future of women's tennis. They are fast, adaptable, and unafraid to take risks. Their styles complement each other, blending power with creativity, raw athleticism with tactical curiosity. In normal circumstances, this partnership would be viewed as exciting but routine. Under the current spotlight, it has become symbolic. Youth stepping forward under pressure. A refusal to shrink when the world grows louder. Then came the draw, and with it, a twist so dramatic it felt scripted. Waiting for Eala and Jovic was not just another competent doubles team. It was a pairing that embodies legacy, dominance, and sheer intimidation. Venus Williams, a living legend of the sport, stood on the opposite side, partnered with Ukrainian powerhouse Elena Svitolina, a former world number 3 still firmly entrenched among the elite. Suddenly, this first-round doubles match carried the weight of a generational showdown. The contrast could not have been sharper. Eala and Jovic, with a combined age barely pushing 40, represented possibility and promise. Across the net stood experience measured not in years, but in trophies, scars, and victories earned on the biggest stages tennis has to offer. Venus Williams alone brings a resume that reshaped the sport. 7 Grand Slam singles titles. 14 Grand Slam doubles titles. Decades of excellence, resilience, and reinvention. At 45, she remains a symbol of longevity and unbreakable competitive spirit. For Williams, this match is more than a tune-up. Every appearance at this stage of her career is a statement that greatness does not expire. She continues to compete not because she has to, but because she chooses to, driven by an inner fire that refuses to dim. For Svitolina, the partnership is about control and authority. She has navigated the pressures of top-level tennis, endured slumps and comebacks, and knows exactly how to dismantle less experienced opponents when the moment demands ruthlessness. For Eala, the stakes feel almost surreal. While headlines replay Hanson's words and political analysts debate consequences, she must prepare to face one of the greatest players of all time. The pressure is unlike anything she has encountered. She is no longer just fighting for progression in a tournament. She is performing under a microscope, with critics waiting for cracks and supporters praying for defiance. The psychological battle is immense. Those who believe she should have stayed silent are watching closely, eager to frame any loss as proof that she cannot handle the spotlight she stepped into. Those who support her see this as a chance to transform pressure into purpose. Hanson's warning hangs in the background, amplifying the sense that Eala is now playing for something larger than herself. Practices in Auckland have reflected this intensity. Observers report Eala spending extra hours refining her serve and sharpening her returns, fully aware of the pace and precision Venus Williams can unleash. Jovic, meanwhile, has been drilling aggressive baseline patterns, preparing to absorb and redirect power without hesitation. Across the courts, Williams and Svitolina have focused heavily on net play and communication, the subtle elements that often decide doubles matches at the highest level. The buzz surrounding this encounter has grown so strong that tournament organizers are reportedly considering moving the match to a larger court. Media interest has surged beyond what is typical for an early-round doubles contest. Cameras are everywhere. Microphones are always on. The ASB Classic, once a quiet pre-season stop, now feels like the center of the tennis universe. As the countdown to match time ticks away, the broader tennis world has begun to weigh in, and the reactions reveal just how deeply this moment has resonated. Coaches, former champions, analysts, and fans are no longer treating this as just another early-round doubles match. It has become a case study in pressure, identity, and the evolving role of athletes in modern society. The political storm surrounding Alexandra Eala has forced uncomfortable conversations, and the tennis community is split, reflective, and intensely engaged. Several respected voices have urged perspective. Former world number 1 doubles player and longtime commentator Rennie Stubbs described the matchup as a perfect example of why tennis remains so compelling. She pointed to the collision of generations, the hunger of youth challenging established greatness, and the beauty of competition unfolding regardless of outside noise. Stubbs emphasized that while politics may swirl around Eala, the court remains a place where clarity exists. Between the lines, excuses disappear, and truth is revealed through performance. Others have noted the poetic symmetry of Venus Williams standing across the net from Eala at this precise moment. Williams herself has never shied away from using her platform. Throughout her career, she fought relentlessly for equal prize money, challenged structural inequalities, and spoke out on social justice issues long before it was fashionable or safe to do so. In that sense, this meeting feels symbolic, a quiet passing of responsibility from one generation of outspoken athletes to the next. It is not about agreement or ideology. It is about the right to speak and still be taken seriously as a competitor. The ASB Classic has been transformed almost overnight. What was once a low-pressure warm-up event is now one of the most watched tournaments on the calendar. Fans who might normally skip early rounds are tuning in. Social media engagement has spiked dramatically. Every clip from practice courts, every player arrival, every subtle interaction is dissected in real time. The script feels too perfect, too dramatic to be real, yet it is unfolding live, without edits or retakes. For Eala, this moment could become a defining chapter. Not because of a win or a loss alone, but because of how she carries herself through it. Elite sport has always been about more than scores. It is about how athletes respond when circumstances turn hostile, when pressure multiplies, and when expectations threaten to crush confidence. Win or lose, stepping onto the court under these conditions requires a level of courage that statistics cannot capture. If Eala and Jovic manage to pull off an upset against Williams and Svitolina, the message will be thunderous. It will be framed as resilience made visible, proof that focus and belief can survive even the most aggressive external noise. It would signal to young athletes everywhere that they are not required to choose between having a voice and performing at the highest level. It would also reinforce Hanson's argument that backing down under pressure is not the only option. If they fall short, the story does not end in failure. Facing legends under a global spotlight is a brutal but invaluable lesson. It becomes a measuring stick, a moment of calibration against excellence refined over decades. Loss in this context does not erase courage. It underscores the reality that growth often comes through discomfort and exposure. Many of the greatest players in history endured moments like this early in their careers, moments that hardened resolve rather than breaking it. What cannot be undone is the shift this episode represents. Alex Eala has crossed an invisible threshold. She is no longer just a promising talent on the rise. She is now a figure associated with a broader conversation about freedom of expression, power dynamics, and the cost of honesty in elite sport. Whether she embraces that role or quietly resists it, the association will linger. Pauline Hanson's involvement ensures that this story will not fade quietly. Political figures rarely step so aggressively into the sporting arena without long-term consequences. Supporters see her actions as necessary protection. Critics view them as opportunistic provocation. Either way, her 12-word warning has become a rallying cry and a lightning rod, ensuring continued scrutiny from all sides. For the tennis establishment, this moment presents a challenge. How governing bodies respond, how media narratives evolve, and how players are supported will be watched closely. Young athletes from smaller nations, in particular, are paying attention. They see in Eala a test case. Speak up and face the storm, or stay silent and protect your career. The outcome of this saga will influence how that calculation is made in the future. As match time approaches, one truth stands out above the noise. Tennis, at its best, reveals character. It strips away rehearsed statements and exposes emotional core. It shows who can stand firm when everything feels stacked against them. That is why this moment feels bigger than rankings or prize money. It is about presence under pressure, about refusing to disappear when the spotlight burns hottest. Champions tennis family, this is why stories like this captivate us. They remind us that sport is never isolated from society. It reflects our conflicts, our values, and our contradictions. Whether you believe Pauline Hanson was right to intervene or should have stayed out, whether you think athletes should speak out or stay focused solely on competition, this moment forces reflection. Now the question turns to you. Who do you believe will prevail on the court? The fearless young duo of Eala and Jovic, playing with nothing to lose and everything to prove, or the battle-tested legends, Venus Williams and Alina Svitolina, armed with experience, precision, and championship instinct? Share your predictions, your opinions, and your hot takes. This conversation is far from over. If you found this deep dive compelling, make sure to support the channel. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories that shape the world of tennis beyond the scoreboard. We will be following every development, every point, and every ripple effect of this extraordinary collision between sport and power. This is Champions Tennis, and we'll see you in the next one.